Morning. The other day I was reflecting on another story that I want to share with you. The story goes, there was this gentleman who had decided to go for a really long hike in the mountains. And as he was going along some cliffs, the terrain was a little rough and he lost his footing. And he began to fall over the edge of the cliff because it was a very narrow pathway. As luck would have it, he reached out and grasped, and he managed to catch a branch of a tree that was growing along the side of the cliff. And he hung there for a few seconds, looking down hundreds of feet to the rocky ground below. I mean, there was no chance of surviving this. He looks around. There's no one there. He calls out. He says, "Is there anyone up there that can help me?" And lo and behold, a voice shouted back to him, "Yes, I am here." The man was sort of puzzled because he hadn't seen anyone else hiking that day, and he said, "Who is this?" The voice called back, "It's me, God. What do you need?" The man was sort of not sure what to think at this point, but he figured, if that was the only one calling back to him, he was going to do what he could to try to trust the voice. And he said, "God, I'm dangling here by a branch above this 1,000-foot drop, most likely, with rocks below. I don't want to die. What do I need to do?" And God said, "You need to let go of the branch." Man sort of thought for a moment and tried to process what was going on. And finally, after a few moments, he looked up and he said, "Is there anyone else up there?" I love that story because it's pretty humorous, but at the same time, it's really a reflection of, I think, what a lot of us would do in that situation. When it comes to our faith, I think trusting God is one of the hardest things to overcome because we can't really see Him. We don't, at least as far as I know, most of us don't have full-blown audible conversations with Him. And that, of course, in turn makes the others from the outside of the faith kind of look at that and go, "That is really, really strange. Unless I can see it, touch it, taste it, feel it, I'm not really sold on trusting it." I mean, that's what our modern way of thinking tends to do. In the book of Hebrews, we read in chapter 11 that faith is trusting in things not seen. Having faith was reckoned to a number of our predecessors in our faith as righteousness because they trusted God. One of the greatest moments of trust that I think I can ever recall in the book of Scripture that we have, is that of Abraham and Isaac. I mean, here's a man who literally had already followed God away from his home and family, was shown a region that would become his descendants that he would never himself actually inherit for himself. And as he grew older, he still had no kids. I mean, talk about not willing, that's a chance for some people to say, "Look, I'm done with this, I'm walking away," and yet he didn't. I mean, he had his moments where he needed to remember to trust God. He didn't always, but overall, I mean, he did pretty well with that. And then finally, as he receives this child, Isaac, in his old age, as Sarah is supposed to be barren at her age, I mean, mind blown right then and there, God fulfilled His promise. And then He turns around and asks him to sacrifice Isaac. I mean, what? Let go of the branch. Talk about a hard sell. And yet, just as Abraham is about to trust God completely and strike Isaac down there as a sacrifice, God stops him. His trust is rewarded. And that's an uncomfortable story for folks who don't understand the deeper meaning behind trusting God, who recognize that trusting God means trusting Him with our lives and recognizing that sometimes we're going to be brought to some moments that are really uncomfortable, but God will carry us through. This week, I want to remind you that Isaiah preaches to the people of God, and he says, "When you go through deep waters, I," meaning God, "will be with you." That's something hard to trust in. Because what it's not saying is, "I'm going to save you from the deep waters." No, it means you're going to go through some deep waters. You're going to go to the deep end of the pool. And that's scary for a child, but guess what? Like a parent, I will go with you, and I will save you. That is the kind of trust that I want to encourage you to have this week. It's a trust that I need to work on too. May you have a blessed week, and we'll see you soon.